They did not pull away because they felt nothing. They pulled away because what they felt got too deep, too real, too hard to control, and the second you stopped chasing, the whole story changed inside them, quietly, privately, in a way they may never fully admit. Most people think distance means the bond is over, but sometimes distance is where the truth finally gets loud. Sometimes the one who looks calm is the one losing sleep. The one who goes silent is the one replaying everything. And if you ever loved someone who acted cold while your heart knew there was more under the surface, stay with me, because what you are about to hear may explain the silence better than their words ever did. You did not do what most people do. You did not beg. You did not collapse. You did not fight for crumbs and call it love. You did 6 rare things that reach the hidden parts of their mind, and now your energy stays with them in ways they cannot easily shake off. Watch closely, because the final part is where everything turns, and it may reveal why they still think about you even now. The moment you stopped chasing them, something inside them shifted in ways they did not expect. On the outside, it may have looked like relief, more space, less pressure, less emotional noise, but beneath that first layer was something far less comfortable: confusion, restlessness, a strange weight they could not explain. They were used to a pattern. They pull away, the other person reacts. More messages come in, more questions, more pressure, more emotional intensity. That pattern lets them stay in control because the attention stays on your reaction, not on their fear. But when you did not run after them, that whole structure cracked. There was no longer a storm outside them to distract from the storm inside. And for someone who avoids their own feelings, silence can feel terrifying, because now they had to sit with it. They had to feel the absence. They had to notice how your distance felt heavier than your presence ever seemed. That is when they started thinking more than they wanted to, replaying your words, studying old moments, wondering whether you still cared, wondering why your calm was harder to forget than anyone else's chaos. That part matters, because your silence did not feel empty. It felt strong, it felt whole, it felt like love that did not beg to be chosen. And for someone afraid of being trapped, that kind of love becomes deeply attractive. Not because it controls them, but because it does not. What stayed with them was not only your presence, it was the feeling that you saw something in them that most people never noticed. They spent years building a protective mask, a calm face, a detached voice, a sharp joke, a logical answer, a habit of pulling back before anyone got too close. To the world, they looked self-contained, hard to read, hard to reach, but under that surface was often a person carrying private fear, old hurt, and an exhausting need to stay protected at all times. Most people only react to the outside. They either get scared off by the distance or they try to force their way through it. But you responded in a different way. You noticed the contradiction, the way they moved closer, then pulled back, the warmth in one moment, the coldness in the next, the silent care hidden behind mixed signals. And instead of making it a power game, you understood that their inconsistency often came from fear, not from a lack of feeling. That kind of understanding hits them harder than they let on, because being truly seen is both beautiful and frightening for someone like that. One part of them wants it more than anything. Another part fears that if anyone sees too much, rejection will come next, shame will come next, loss of control will come next. But you did not expose them to embarrass them. You understood without humiliating them. You noticed without attacking them. That created a level of emotional safety they were not ready for. And once someone reaches that hidden place in them, forgetting becomes far harder than pretending. Another reason your energy stayed inside them so deeply is because you gave them something they rarely find: freedom without abandonment. For many emotionally distant people, closeness does not always feel warm. Sometimes it feels dangerous. It feels like pressure, expectation, duty, and the slow loss of personal space. Somewhere in their past, love may have felt heavy instead of safe. So the second they sense control, possessiveness, or emotional suffocation, their body says, retreat. Create space, breathe, get out before you disappear inside someone else's needs. But with you, it did not feel the same. You cared deeply, yet you did not act like they belonged to you. You gave room without becoming cold. You did not panic every time they went quiet. You did not make their every shift the center of your emotional world. You still had your own life, your own center, your own identity outside the connection. That balance changed everything because they secretly respect people who can love without clinging. Emotional independence feels safe to them. It says, I want you, but I do not need to control you. It says, I care, but I will not consume you. And for someone always watching for signs of emotional captivity, that is powerful. It makes the connection feel breathable, human, real. Later, when they meet other people, something feels off. Some are too detached, some are too demanding, but what they had with you lived in that rare middle place, close but not crushing, warm but not suffocating, open but not invasive, and that kind of emotional freedom is not easy to replace. Your emotional consistency also affected them more than they probably ever said out loud. People like this are often more sensitive to instability than anyone realizes. They may look detached, but inside, they are constantly scanning for shifts, pressure, criticism, sudden conflict, manipulation, emotional swings. Many of them learned early that closeness can change without warning. Warmth can become blame. Love can turn into guilt. Connection can become exhaustion. So they stay guarded. Not because they enjoy distance, but because unpredictability feels dangerous. Then you came in with a very different energy. You were not hot one day and ice cold the next just to get attention. You did not play mind games. You did not punish silence with more silence as a weapon. Even when they confused you, you stayed more grounded than reactive. That steadiness created something rare inside them, calm, and they may not have recognized it right away. People who live in defense mode often do not notice safety until it is gone, but over time, your presence became connected to peace in their nervous system. Around you, they did not always feel like they had to brace for emotional impact. They did not have to prepare for explosions, guilt trips, or dramatic tests of loyalty. That matters more than most people know, because attraction can be instant, but trust grows in the body. Safety settles slowly. And once someone begins connecting you with peace instead of pressure, the bond goes deeper than chemistry. It begins to live in memory. Long after distance shows up, they still find themselves missing how calm they felt around you. Stay with me here, because this is where the attachment often becomes stronger after the separation, not weaker. Something else made your place in their heart even harder to erase. You did not treat them like a project that needed fixing. Many emotionally distant people carry hidden shame about how hard intimacy feels for them. They know they get confusing. They know they pull away. They know they can care deeply and still struggle to show it clearly. And because of that, they are used to being met with frustration, lectures, pressure, or constant attempts to change them before they feel safe enough to open up. That only makes the walls thicker. It confirms the fear they already carry, that love comes with judgment, and that being known means being corrected. But you brought a different energy. You saw their contradictions and did not turn every moment into an attack. You listened without always trying to reshape them. You gave understanding instead of domination. That does not mean you accepted everything forever or allowed harmful behavior with no limits. It means your energy carried respect. And respect is powerful to someone who expects emotional pressure the second they show weakness. They often believe people only love the polished version of them, the strong version, the self-controlled version, the low-maintenance version. So when they meet someone who notices the fear, the silence, the struggle, and does not instantly pull respect away, something softens deep inside. Their guard does not drop all at once, but it cracks, slowly, quietly, in important places. That is why your patience had such a deep effect. Real change almost never happens because someone was forced hard enough. It happens because someone finally feels safe enough to stop performing. You gave them moments where they did not have to act emotionally perfect to be treated with care. And once they connect you with relief from shame, letting go of you becomes much harder than leaving you. The moment that haunted them most was not when you loved them endlessly. It was when you finally chose yourself and stepped back with dignity. That part changed the whole story, because many of them assume people will keep waiting, keep hoping, keep making excuses, keep offering chance after chance no matter how distant they become. It is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is emotional delay. They do not fully process impact in real time, so they keep telling themselves there is still time. They can fix it later, reach out later, explain later. But when you slowly stopped sacrificing your peace for an inconsistent bond, that is when reality hit. And it did not hit with drama. That is why it cut deeper. You did not beg. You did not chase them through every closed door. You did not burn everything down on your way out. You simply saw your worth and moved accordingly. That calm withdrawal left them with nowhere to hide, because now they had to face what they had lost without being able to blame chaos for it. Your absence became louder than your presence had ever been. Little memories returned at random. The way you listened without judging. The way you stayed patient during their silent moods, the way you loved without trying to cage them. Suddenly, what once felt available started feeling rare, and rare things become painfully visible after they are gone. What unsettles them most is not losing someone loud, it is losing someone steady, someone who loved deeply, respected themselves, and still walked away when the connection stopped honoring their value. That kind of ending does not just hurt, it teaches, it forces reflection, and sometimes that reflection comes too late, which is exactly why it stays with them for so long. You also became unforgettable because you did not force emotional intensity before trust had time to grow. Most people rush this part. They want instant closeness, instant labels, instant vulnerability, instant proof. But when someone is wired to fear emotional overwhelm, speed feels dangerous, even if the feelings are real. They may like you very much and still retreat because the pace feels like too much too soon. Their system reads pressure where your heart reads passion. But your approach was different. You allowed things to unfold. You did not demand every hidden truth before safety had been built. You understood that trust is not created by emotional force. It is built through repetition, through steadiness, through small moments that say, you are safe here, again and again, until the body starts to believe it. That patience mattered more than you knew. It gave them room to breathe. It let connection feel like a choice instead of a trap. And that changes everything for a person who associates closeness with losing freedom. The less trapped they felt, the more curious they became. The more respected they felt, the less they had to defend themselves. Ironically, by not rushing intimacy, you helped it grow deeper inside them. They may never say that clearly. They may not even fully understand it themselves. But your patience signaled maturity. It signaled security. In a world where so many people try to fast-forward love, your willingness to let it grow naturally made the bond feel real, slow but real, gentle but deep. And often, the people who are hardest to reach end up thinking the longest about the one who never tried to corner them before they were ready. What stayed alive in them after the distance was the emotional imprint you left behind. This is important, so do not miss it. People like this often do not process the meaning of a bond while they are inside it. During the connection, they can stay numb, distracted, detached, or split between desire and fear. Detachment becomes a coping tool. It helps them function. It helps them keep the intensity from swallowing them whole. But when the interaction ends and the noise fades, the feelings they push down start rising in silence. That is when your memory becomes sharper, not softer. They begin replaying ordinary moments, and suddenly those moments no longer feel ordinary. The way you answered calmly instead of reacting, the way you gave space without vanishing completely, the way your energy stayed grounded even when they withdrew. Those things come back as emotional signals, not just memories. They start comparing. New attention may come in, new faces, new conversations, but something feels missing. They cannot always name it. They only know the feeling is different, because what your presence gave them was not just affection. It was a rare blend of peace and depth at the same time. Most people bring one or the other. You brought both. And once your nervous system becomes linked in their mind with safety, being seen, and emotional breathing room, you become a reference point, a standard. Not one they asked for, not one they planned to create, but one they carry anyway. This is why moving on is rarely a straight line for them. They may move physically, they may distract themselves, they may act finished, but inwardly, they keep circling back to the feeling of you. And there is another layer few people talk about. When someone like this meets a person who does not abandon themselves in love, it quietly challenges their whole belief system. They are used to seeing relationships become messy. One person clings, one person chases, one person loses themselves trying to keep the bond alive. That familiar pattern lets them stay defended because it confirms what they already fear. Closeness eventually becomes pressure. But you broke that pattern. You cared deeply, and still you kept your center. You felt strongly, and still you kept your dignity. You did not let love turn you into someone smaller than yourself. That was deeply disorienting to them because it showed them a version of connection they may have wanted but never trusted was real. A bond with room inside it. A bond where care does not mean capture. A bond where closeness does not erase individuality. That kind of love is powerful because it does not just feel good, it exposes the limits of their defense. It shows them they may not have been running from love itself, they may have been running from the fear that comes up when love feels safe enough to matter. And that is a very different thing. So even after you leave, they keep returning in thought to what was different about you. Why did your calm affect them so much? Why did your absence feel so loud? Why did your respect feel more intimate than other people's intensity? These questions stay with them because your energy did not fit into their old story, and when a person no longer fits the story you used to protect yourself, forgetting them becomes a lot harder. They may never fully say it, but your absence often forces them into an emotional mirror, not all at once, not dramatically, slowly, quietly, almost painfully. At first, they try to move on through distance. They distract themselves. They tell themselves it was for the best. They focus on routine, work, entertainment, anything that keeps them from feeling too much. But then the still moments arrive, late at night, during a drive, in the middle of an ordinary day when nothing special is happening. And suddenly, there you are again, in their mind, not as a fantasy, as a feeling, a tone, a kind of peace they did not fully value when it was near. This is where many of them start recognizing something hard to admit. They were not untouched. They were overwhelmed. They were not always cold. They were afraid of what warmth would ask of them. They were not free just because they left. In some ways, they became more emotionally tied after the distance because separation removed the distractions that kept them numb. And that can be hard for them to accept because now they must face a truth they avoided while you were present. The bond mattered. Your steadiness mattered. The way you handled yourself mattered. The way you saw them and still kept your own value intact mattered. Retention line here, because this next part is the one many people miss. They often do not return first in action. They return first in reflection, and reflection is where longing starts building before pride knows what to do with it. As time passes, the contrast becomes even clearer for them. They meet people who offer excitement but not peace. They meet people who give attention but not understanding. They meet people who want closeness but do not respect space. Or they meet people who respect space so much that no depth ever forms. And in those comparisons, your value keeps rising. Not because you were perfect, not because the relationship had no pain, but because what you offered was rare. You created emotional room without becoming emotionally unavailable. You showed care without making it feel heavy. You stayed compassionate without losing yourself. That combination stays unforgettable because it is so uncommon. And here is the part that really lingers in their heart. You made them feel safe without making them feel small. For someone who spent years guarding against control, that is everything. It makes them think about the conversations they brushed past, the moments they could have been more open, the chances they had to move closer but did not. Regret begins building in details, not always in one giant wave, but in many small ones. A sentence remembered, a look remembered, a quiet moment remembered, and each memory says the same thing in a different voice. What you had was not ordinary. This is why some people who seem so detached end up carrying the deepest private regret, because they often understand the value of emotional safety after it is gone. And when they do, they realize that replacing chemistry is easy compared to replacing peace. There is also a reason your strength affected them more than softness alone ever could. You did not just love them, you held your shape while loving them. That matters. Anyone can stay when things feel easy, but it takes a different kind of emotional maturity to care deeply and still know where your line is. You were patient, but not endlessly self-abandoning. You were understanding, but not blind. You were open, but not available for confusion forever. That balance becomes unforgettable because it reflects self-respect, and self-respect is magnetic to someone who secretly fears emotional enmeshment. It tells them love can be deep without becoming desperate. It tells them boundaries do not kill connection. They protect it, and perhaps most of all, it shows them what they were not ready to give themselves. Honesty without collapse, tenderness without weakness, closeness without losing identity. That is why they keep thinking about you in moments when life feels too loud. Your energy represented something steady in a world they often experience as emotionally demanding. Even if they do not come back, even if they never explain, even if pride keeps them silent, the imprint remains. Because part of them knows you met them with a kind of love they may not find again soon. A love that did not scream to prove itself. A love that did not chase to feel real. A love that stood there, clear and grounded, and then walked away when it had to. That kind of love is hard to erase because it leaves no chaos to blame, only truth to remember. And if they ever do reach out again, it is often not because they suddenly became a different person overnight. It is because distance gave them what closeness could not, clarity. In your presence, the feelings may have been too strong, too exposing, too hard for them to organize, but in your absence, the meaning had room to rise. They start seeing the difference between control and care, between pressure and presence, between being wanted and being understood. That shift can unsettle them deeply, because now they have to admit that what they ran from may have been the very thing they were quietly hoping to find. Not perfection, not obsession, not a fantasy, just safety. Real safety, the kind that lets a guarded heart rest without feeling trapped. And once they understand that, even a little, they can no longer pretend the bond was small. This is why some of them come back awkwardly, indirectly, carefully. They test the water, they circle instead of rushing in, not always because they do not care, but because care is exactly what scares them. Still, whether they return or not is not the deepest truth here. The deepest truth is what your presence revealed. It revealed that you do not need to chase to be unforgettable. You do not need to shrink to be loved. You do not need to abandon your peace to prove your heart is real. And that lesson is bigger than any one connection, because once you live it, your energy changes. You stop begging for clarity from people who fear giving it. You stop treating confusion like intimacy. You stop chasing what only values you when you are leaving. So the real story is not simply that they became attached to you, it is that you represented a form of love their defenses did not know how to fight. You were kind, but not weak, open, but not reckless, patient, but not without standards. You gave understanding without surrendering your self-worth, and that is exactly why your impact went so deep. They could not file you away as just another person who wanted too much, pushed too hard, or disappeared too fast. You gave them a new experience of connection, and new experiences break old patterns even when people resist them. That is what happened here. You reached parts of them that usually stay hidden under silence, pride, and distance. And once those parts are touched, life does not feel exactly the same afterward. Stay to the end of this thought, because this is the core of everything. What they call distance is often not the absence of feeling. It is the struggle to hold feeling without panic. It is the fear of being changed by love. It is the fear of needing what they cannot fully control. And when someone like you enters their life, someone who offers warmth without chains and truth without force, that fear gets exposed. They may step back, they may go quiet, they may resist, but deep down they know something real happened, something rare, something that does not fade just because they avoid naming it. In the end, you were never meant to chase them into seeing your value. You were meant to reveal your value by how you carried yourself when the connection stopped being healthy for you. That is the part people remember, not just the love you gave, but the way you gave it without losing yourself. Not just the patience, but the line you finally drew. Not just your warmth, but your dignity. And once someone experiences that kind of love, even if they are guarded, even if they are conflicted, even if they leave before they are ready to receive it fully, they do not erase it easily. They remember the peace, they remember the freedom, they remember being seen without being cornered. They remember being cared for without being controlled, and slowly, sometimes much later than expected, they begin to understand that what they left was not something ordinary, it was something healing, something mature, something their defenses confused for danger because they had never learned how to relax inside real emotional safety. So if you ever wondered whether your calm mattered, it did. If you ever wondered whether your silence said anything, it did. If you ever wondered whether walking away with self-respect changed the story, it did, because the rarest love is not the one that holds on the hardest. It is the one that stays true to itself, gives deeply, sees clearly, and knows when to let go without losing its own worth. And that is exactly why they may leave, resist, or hide, but somewhere inside, they still remember you.